Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning. Today's video, we're going to pick up where we left off last week. This is our tutorial that we're building, and we are going to add authentication to this. But before we continue, let's just get through the administration. Remember to like this video. Remember to turn on notifications so you are notified when new videos are released. We are doing a whole video tutorial series, so we'll be continuing off where we left off until we finish the entire application, which is going to be a very interesting, complex software as a service SaaS application that we're going to show you how to build on this channel from scratch. Okay, and so last week we did the creating the actual functionality of the app, but of course today we're going to add more complexity to the application by adding authentication. So this is what we had by the end of last week. You can see this is a login, this is a home page. So what we've added already, we've already built. By the end of this application, you'll have a logout. We have built in a logout page, which then you log out of the application. And if you've logged out and you go back to the home page, it actually doesn't allow you to access the home page anymore because you now need to be logged in to access that page. So we have built in a whole authentication flow that allows you to log in and to create an account. And so if you're logged in, and then there will be a login page, and obviously if you have a username and password, you can log in here. If you don't, it allows you to create an account over there where you can put in your profile, your email address and password twice, and create an account and register. But I just created an account because I just built this now, and I'm going to show you how when you now log in with the password that I just created, that this completely works. If you enter the correct password, it logs you in and takes you back to the home page where you can now interact with the application. So by the end of this tutorial, you will have your application to this level at the very least. And we also have the forgot password link and all of those other things that go in with authentication. So this is going to be a very involved tutorial and a very crucial part of being able to build platforms, software as a service platform, because you need to manage authentication. So I hope you guys will enjoy the tutorial and watch it until the end, because every single part of this tutorial is very, very important for you to catch on what's going on. We already actually have a ChatGPT application on Django because we did this in last week's tutorial. So we're going to continue where we left off last week, because currently there's a lot of things that's wrong with this application. Anybody can this is the landing page, and when you land on the landing page, you can already start chatting with the application. The application has no way of keeping memory of the previous conversation. So as soon as I refresh this page, everything starts from scratch. And at the same time, the most important thing about web software as a service, or what we call SaaS applications, is you need to have a form of managing users and authentication. So people need to log into the application with their user profiles, and they need to log out, and you need to keep track of who's who. And then it will be even better that we could keep track of the conversations between the people that are chatting. So far, I'm going to be building this application with the complexity as we go along. So far the application is very, very basic. I'm using very simple bootstrap templates, but obviously as we go on, maybe we'll improve upon this and use more professional looking type templates in the front end, but we'll see if we get to that with time. And also in the end, we also want to integrate payment processing. So if you want to do all of that in one place, and I think there is no tutorial on YouTube that is showing you exactly the kind of things that I show you on Scholar Online. So get ready. The way our tutorials are planned is you need to be coding as I'm coding. So this is not a movie theater where you're going to show up with a bunch of popcorns and sit and watch through the tutorial. That's not the way we structure our tutorials. You need to have your laptop ready. You need to go and get a virtual server. You need to write the code as I write it along. At the end, maybe I will make the code available on GitHub, but I don't always do that. I don't like to do that because I want you to go through the coding with me line by line. And as you experience errors, you need to be able to go and Google those errors and look for solutions. Ask other people that are doing the same thing. Stack Overflow is a very, very useful tool. And nowadays we have ChatGPT as well. So you can actually copy and paste your error into ChatGPT and it will help you. And I'm going to show you as well something very useful that wasn't always there before, and maybe some YouTube tutorials on Django development are not going to have it, but I've been using ChatGPT in my development actually in the last couple of projects, and I found it very, very useful. It has even helped me improve the kind of coding that I write, because it's writing it from like a point of, the best way to write that piece of code. So every now and then I put my code through ChatGPT. Every now and then I ask it, how would you write that? Did I write this well? Things like that. So we're going to have ChatGPT open as well. And this is a good place for you to go, and when you've got errors, to copy and paste your error in here, copy and paste your code in ChatGPT and ask it why you're seeing the error that you're seeing. And it's actually very useful to help that. So ChatGPT is not just a chatbot online, okay? ChatGPT is actually a coding assistant. So today I'm going to go through the step of writing the code that we're going to write, and we're going to use ChatGPT as our coding assistant. Okay, so you don't need the GPT-4. So the ChatGPT 3.5 is quite sufficient for what it is that we're going to do, and this is the free version that is available online. If you go to ChatGPT, you don't have to pay for this. Okay, so now let's get started. This is where we were last week. Okay, we have built this working app, and as you can see, what's happening here? As you can see, our application is ready to go. I've actually asked it a question: explain rocket science like I'm a 2-year-old. Rocket science is like playing with a really big toy that, okay, so I'm gonna ask it again. Explain rocket science like I am a, I don't know, university professor from, I don't know, MIT. Right? So this, I'm just demonstrating to you that this is ChatGPT, right? It is the exact ChatGPT that you get over here. There is a slight differences between the API and the online version, and people have asked me this in the past, and maybe let me use this opportunity to explain, because I love to teach my students and explain everything to them. The first main difference, okay, so you can go over, then you can see it explains. Certainly Professor Rocket Science, so you can see this explanation is much longer than that one, and it explains it in a more detailed fashion. So there are two main differences between this and the API, and it's around privacy. So I don't know if you know this, right? But when you use ChatGPT online, especially the free version, the ChatGPT 3.5, based on their privacy policies, this is available to free users. All the information that you type in here, OpenAI has right to it. They can save it, they can use it to retrain the models, they can reuse it to improve the system. But that is a price that you pay for using the system for free. So I always tell people, there's nothing for free in this world. I'm a developer, and I know how much time and effort it takes me to write code, the amount of services I need for servers to get them running and things like that. There is absolutely no way I can build this kind of application and then offer it for free, considering how much it costs me just to keep it running. So users on the other side expect free things. So we always count between a rock and a hard place, and how do you then sponsor that service so that you can make it available to people for free? There's usually one or two ways. All right, number one is that you use the people's data, you sell the data, you bring in advertisers, and you tell advertisers, well, I can advertise to the right people because I know what they're asking for and things like that, right? Number two, you bring in sponsors, or you find a way to have the thing sponsor or service itself. That is the only way that you can provide that service for free. So this service is free, and you get it for free because you are the service. So your data, your information is being used by ChatGPT to do that. On the API, on the other hand, we are paying for this. So this is a commercial service. I'm paying for using the API. When I write my code, if you remember very well, I've got this AI engine where I'm accessing this ChatGPT via the API, and I pay for each and every API call that I make. As a result, the information that I give it via the API is protected. So OpenAI does not save this information. It doesn't keep it for future. This information is private. So that's the main difference, okay? If you're very concerned about privacy and some of the things that you're putting through the API, rather use some of the things that you put through ChatGPT, rather use the API, because that way you know that your information is very, very safe. This is a very, very important distinction, but people don't always get it. Nothing is for free. Even Facebook is not free, right? Even Google is not free, right? Every time you come across a free service, you are the service. Just keep that in mind. Now, I'm very happy that my ChatGPT works well, but I've got a problem over here. You can see this image is not there. So this is supposed to be my profile image. So I've got the profile image of the OpenAI, and then I'm supposed to have my profile image over there, and that profile image is not clear, right? Right now, I don't really care what I put there. I could put anything, right? I could put anything there as an image. I could even put my own logo. Maybe we'll put the Scholar Online logo over there for the person. So let's try and see the code for that, and let's try and correct that. So we're gonna need the HTML. The HTML is inside of, I remember now, we don't have a static folder. That is why. So we don't have anything inside of the static folder. So we might want to change that. Let me see. Push. So the templates, the profiles, the login, the index. There it is. All right, so over here, the SRC, so the image SRC, this one over here, you can see it's blank. All right, so this is where you want to put the image. So you could put it in there's two options. So I could save it in the static folder, and then I could get it that way. But a second option I actually like to do is, and this one is a solution that will fix all, because we currently don't have a static folder because we're using Bootstrap Online. You can see our HTML and our CSS over here inside of the template. Where is it? There you go. We are using our Bootstrap CSS, and at the bottom there we are using our Bootstrap JavaScript as well, and we are accessing it via CDN. So we don't have a static folder. We are going to fix that later on. So we can actually get an image via CDN or via cloud as well. So I'm going to use my DigitalOcean account. I think I've shown you this in the past, where you can save an image on DigitalOcean and then you can serve it that way. So I'm going to log into my DigitalOcean. I've got a lot of things, so just close your eyes and don't pay too much attention to some of my other DigitalOcean projects. Let's see. I'm going to look for, I think I've shown you here in the past where we've got spaces, right? And spaces on DigitalOcean, it's just $5, and you can have up to 100 different buckets, right? So I've got lots of buckets. I'm going to use this one. That's called Bertha, because I think I just have my own stuff in here. I'm going to just upload a folder in here. Yes, I'm just going to upload a folder in here, right? Or can I put it? Yeah, let me just upload it just blankly anyway here on the root of here. So I'm going to upload a Scholar Online logo. So let me look for it. Got lots of stuff over here. Where is it? Where's my logo? Designs. There you go. There you go. And I'm going to make it public because I want people to be able to see it. Where is it now? Okay, so let's try again. Logo, public, upload. There you go. So now that I've uploaded it, I'm just gonna, you don't need to refresh the page, but I just want to see it at the bottom here. And when you hover over it, they change this a lot. So you've got origin endpoint, and I don't think I've got the CDN endpoint because I didn't activate CDN for this specific bucket. But obviously CDN is better, but it's not absolutely crucial, especially if everyone is in one place. If you just hover over this, you're gonna see a link, and this link is where your file is. So I'm just gonna copy it like that. So if you have DigitalOcean and you've got a DigitalOcean account, this only costs $5 to get a bucket, a storage bucket, and you can save things in the storage bucket, and then you can get links to them online, and then you can use those things. So for now, this is a quick fix solution to just get an image over here. All right, so I'm going to replace this with this image of that. So this, remember, is the script where when I get the response from the API, it gets added into this list item, and then it gets appended to our original list item. And the original image that's here is this one, right? And then as we talk, I mean, as I bring in more questions, it appends that, right? And it appends there when you ask the question. So if you guys remember, this is how we are appending our list item. So this list item over here, every time I chat, when the answer comes, oh no, yeah, so this logo comes in, this logo is over there, and then I've just added one for myself, and I'm using the Scholar Online logo, right? If you use this same link that I'm showing you here, you will also have the Scholar Online logo if you want to use that in the meantime. Later on, we will put proper profile pictures, but this is a quick fix solution for now, so that our website doesn't look weird the way it is. All right, let's just check it out and see logo. Master dish. Okay, the server is already restarted. Let me actually just want to copy the same question. Oh no, I'll have to re-ask it again. All right, so let me ask another question. Tell me more about, let's get a simple question about how money works. Okay, tell me more about how money works. So you can see now I'm using that Scholar Online logo. I just uploaded it now to DigitalOcean, and then I got the logo link, all right, in the spaces. So if you go over here into manage and you go into spaces, you can create a new space, and you have up to 100 spaces for just $5, right? And I've used it, like, for now, as you can see on my spaces, under here, under spaces, I've got like multiple spaces already. I've got like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 7 different websites where I use spaces on it. All right, from like a year ago to 8 days ago, a recent website that I'm building, including my mobile GPT. I use that for that as well. So you can have like up to 100 and still pay only that $5. All right, so I'm gonna close that, and I'm happy now. All right, so let's continue. So today's tutorial is going to be on authentication. So authentication is logging in and logging out, so that people can like log in and log out. And we're going to do something even better within authentication. We're going to add the ability to send a code, to send a reference code, because people will give you like a wrong email address. Sometimes they will put in an address that is, they will misspell the address, by mistake, not that they're trying to give you a wrong email address, and then they never get communications from you. So it's very, very important, as part of keeping the email addresses you've got on your system, to make sure that you have verified and checked those email addresses to be correct. So one of the best ways to do that is to send a verification code to the email address, and then they come back. So we're gonna take you through that whole process of building an authentication system that has email verification code in there before somebody registers. So it's a couple of steps here, and I also refer to this code myself when I build this, because I can't remember every little thing I need to remember for this code. So I've got this this folder called Django Starter Authentication, which I use, and I'm going to actually just open it over here. What is this one? OpenAI authentication error. Okay, so this didn't run. This question didn't run. Why didn't it? Oh, I know why it didn't run, because I pushed the changes and I had removed my API key from this code. That's okay. I'll resolve that. Okay, so let's clear this. All right, and let us get going. Let's get back to it. So I'm going to CD into my desktop, because I just want to open this new folder that's in here. I think it's called what is it called? Django Starter Authentication, this one. And I'm just going to open it. So I'm going to use this folder. Sorry, I'm going to have to copy and paste the code from here, because even as long as I've been developing, I don't memorize the entire code in my head to know exactly, and you don't have to. All right, you only have to build an application that works once, and you can use it every other time to refer to it. But it's not always a good idea, because then you will always be stuck with the mistakes you've made in the old code. So I'm going to show you a combination of using your previous code, which is what I do, and I think most developers do as well, and a tool like ChatGPT as well, to sort of like just vet the code and like try and improve it here and there, So today I'm going to take you through the process which I myself personally as a developer go through to every time I write new code. So where is this? Okay, so I need to actually go in here. So I've closed this. Damn it. Okay, CD desktop. And CD, paste in here. Okay, CD, open that. There's nothing in here. That's very odd. How is there nothing in this folder? Okay, very odd. So I think it's, so there's an empty folder. Let me see. There's nothing in that folder. Okay, just give me a moment. Try and find it in here. All right, there you go. There you go. Okay, so let's put that in there. Let's try this again. All right, CD Django Starter Authentication. Let me list the stuff in here. Let's open it up. Right, okay, so this is what I'm going to be using for my starter authentication. Okay, so there's a couple of steps, and I'm not going to have a presentation to explain these to you, but just keep this in mind. If you have a pen and piece of paper, you can write it down. Otherwise, you can always come back to this part of the tutorial. You can bookmark this, and you can always come back here to refer to it. Authentication is in a couple of steps. There's a couple of things you need to do that is basic to each and every single authentication build. All right, so I don't only show you the code, I explain to you exactly what it is that we are doing. The first thing as far as authentication goes is being able to have user profiles for your applications. So you need to know a user profile, and a user profile is a built-in model inside of Django. This is one of the things I love building with Django. Why I love building with Django, because I'm not going to build my user model from scratch. I can use the existing user model, right? And a user model in Django has a username, a password, and a first name and a last name. All right, you don't have to use all of the variables, but you have to use the username and the password and the email address. All right, because obviously you need to know the password of the user and the username, and then the email address. I use the email address to actually replace the username, because I don't want to have a username and an email address, because it always confuses people, right? So you need to have, so that's the first thing that a user profile does. That's the most basic thing about user profiles. The second thing is security. So the moment you have user profiles inside of your application, it means you have to secure it. You have to secure it and make sure that data is, data is built in what I call segmented, or sort of like, it's built in a system in a way that, for example, if I create a chat conversation, that chat conversation is going to be connected to me within the application. I'm the only one that can access it. So you have to build in logic for access control. So because now I'm the only, your application might have 100 different users. The last thing you want is for user A to log in and see user B's conversation, or for user B to log in and see user C's conversation, or user C to log in and not see what they have been doing and see everybody else's. So you need to have a logic that manages. The moment you create a user profile, each and every single model that you build after that needs to be connected to the user profile so that you can be able to tell which property belongs to which user. That's the second most important thing about doing user authentication that you have to keep in mind. Security and access control. The third one is obviously, what I call the tick boxes of authentication, right? But they're very, very important because when you build your application, you have to consider that you're building an application for users that are used to other applications. So there's a standard way of doing things. There's a login page and a register page. There's a forget password page because people sometimes forget their passwords. Funny enough, right? So they have to be able to go and reset their passwords on the forget password page. There is, so these are what I call the tick boxes of authentication, right? So there's three main things that you have to keep in mind. The first one is obviously the user model. We're going to be using Django to manage all of that in authentication. The second one is access control and being able to, have a logic that controls, ownership of information and data inside of your application, and keeping in mind that when you build that logic, you want to be able to also now consider privacy rules and regulations, which nowadays, according to most countries' privacy rules and regulations, users have to be able to know and access the data that you have stored for them. So you need to be able to keep track of that. You need to be able to keep track of user-generated data inside of your application and be able to connect each and every single user-generated data to a user, and that the user can access that user-generated data when they want, or they can, if they ask you and say, and write you an email and say, can you please send me all of my user-generated data that you have to be able to do it easily for the user. And the third part, very, very important, and this is a legal requirement for most countries, definitely the EU and most of where I stay in South Africa, the user has to be able to delete their profile, and all their user-generated data must go with it. And this must be a simple thing for the user to do, but your application needs to enable it. So if, for example, user X decides, I don't want to use your application anymore, they could just stop using it. But they could also just say, write your mail and say, please delete all my user-generated data. And you should be able to find that user and delete everything they've created, the chat conversation, in one step. So the user-generated data must sort of cascade down, and that you are able to relate the tables and the data to the user, that you are able to track which conversations, which documents, which everything was created by a specific user, and you can delete everything in one step. So what I love about Django is that Django actually enables you to do all of that very, very seamlessly within built-in models. So very high level, your user authentication steps has to cover all these things. And the last one, of course, is the tick boxes of authentication, which is you need a login page, you need a register page, you need a forget password page, you need, those are just very, very basic stuff that you need to be able to do. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing, what did I say? The models and the profile. Okay, the user and the models and the profile. So we're gonna go over here, and this is where we're gonna create a model, right? And I'm gonna get ChatGPT to help me with this actually. So this is exactly what I said, this is where I get ChatGPT to help me in some cases, okay? You are a Django developer. Create a profile model class that extends. Obviously, you have to know the right questions to ask Django. This is why you are attending this course. To ask ChatGPT, that extends the user class with a one-to-one relationship. Add to the profile. Add to the profile class a Add a date created, date updated, no, last login, unique ID which can be calculated, which can be determined, which will be using UUID 4 for every profile. Add a integer field called credits. Yeah, that's it. So let's see. So basically this is what I want. All right, so this is what it came up with. So you're gonna need the user model, definitely. So import user at the top, and let's see how we did it over here. So models, authentication models. Okay, we don't have the models here, and this is not how I wanted it. So let me tell it to do it like this. Let's see. Okay. Do the date created like so. This is what I wanted to do. Okay, so we can actually time zone. Oh yeah, so at the top there we have to import this UUID 4. Let me just ask ChatGPT, how do you install UUID 4? What else do I need to install here? Time zone comes from Django, so the only external library is UUID 4. I mean, how do I install it? Install it from pip. Yeah, from pip. No. Really? So I don't need to install it. We're gonna test this. So we don't need to install it according to ChatGPT. It is a library that is already in there. I don't know why I always install it. I always install pip install UUID 4, but okay. So maybe it's just a bad habit. All right, let's test it. I don't remember us installing it here. Let's do Python, right? And then let's run this code from UUID, import that UUID 4. Oh, okay. And then do that. And print unique ID like that. Oh, okay. Okay, so I don't need to install it at all. I hope I didn't like already install it last week. You guys can let me know. All right, cool. So in that case, I'm happy. So this is the profiles models that we're going to use. We're going to build a profile when the user logs in. All right. So time zone like that. So let's go through what ChatGPT has built for us. Okay, so the model is called profiles. I think we need to call it profiles. All right, because I called my folder profiles. So let's just do it like that. So it's called profiles. It's got a one-to-one relationship with the user, and you can see over here on delete cascade. This is what I was talking about. All right, so the user is actually a built-in model, so we can actually just import it. It's pre-built with Django, and then we're going to import it at the top, and then we're going to sort of extend it by so when you do a one-to-one relationship, it's actually really extending it because you have the user there, and then you can add other fields to the user that you want. Obviously we're going to add a little bit more, like you can see over here, you have date created. I think that's important, so we can keep track of when actually let's make the default here 10,000. All right, we'll see later, we'll change it, because this is going to be how we will manage credits for for profiles. So that when a user uses credits, when they are, for example, chatting on our ChatGPT, they'll be using credits. Every time they ask, we will be calculating how many credits they're using, and we'll be deducting them from their profile. So we're going to be keeping the record of the profile, and I'm putting a default as 1,000 because I'm going to say, well, let's say every user starts with 1,000 credits, and then as a like for free. So this is like their free trial in a way, and when they use up those credits, they're going to have to buy more, and that's how we will manage, sort of like, instead of doing like subscriptions, instead we'll have people just buy credits. All right, but maybe I'll show you how to do subscriptions as well. But I think this is a better way for dealing with ChatGPT, because then you charge people for what they use. All right, so this is again another whole discussion, of how do you actually charge for the services that you provide. How do you, what pricing model, you got freemium, you got premium. This is another one, the credit one, and you have to figure out which one works well for you. They all have their pros and cons, right? For example, a subscription model is the best one if you can get people to subscribe, because you have a guaranteed income every month. When people subscribe every month, they pay you. Sometimes they even forget they've got subscription. They keep paying you whether they're using your product or not. So that's the most ideal one, but it's always hard to get people to put down their credit card information. You know this, because they are afraid of that. They're afraid that they're gonna forget, and they're afraid of paying for something forever. Right. And then the next thing as well is that with this credit, with the credit systems, you can get people that would not have put down their information to subscribe to at least buy the credits, because they know that, okay, then I'm paying for what I'm using, and they feel like it's fair, and it actually works out cheaper for the user. But then you get people that use more to pay more, people that use less to pay less. So you can have a higher user rate for your system, because people that don't use as much credits will still register and use it. Whereas on the subscription model, people that don't want to subscribe, you don't get them at all. You lose those users. So there's like pros and cons to everything, and think about which pricing model you want. We'll see later on if we have time. Maybe I will also demonstrate the subscription pricing model for you, so that I can at least show you how to build it, and then it will be up to you which one you want to implement. Just remind me, note that in your booklet somewhere, and put it in the comments, and remind me when I get that point to maybe show you how to do the subscription as well. But for now, I think I'm going to go with the credit usage, right? And then we have a date created, and then we have a unique ID, and maximum length here. When you specify a character field, you want to specify the maximum length, and it's nullable. All right, this is also nullable. The integer field, just give it a default. And the one-on-one user, we're going to be using cascade relationships, because we want to be able to say when the user gets deleted, this profile must go with the user as well, right? And then we are returning the self.unique ID over here. Actually, what I want to return as well is I want to return the self-unique ID, and I want to return the self.user.email as well. Actually, I want to have the email come first, and then the unique ID comes second, and we're going to use a F string for that, so that when it shows me the email address and the unique ID, so I can keep track of the profiles by looking at the email addresses as well. All right, and then if there's no date created, we will then specify the date, and then the unique ID as well. We'll replace this with that, and that's cool. So what else do we need in a profile? We will obviously add more to this profile class, but this is sufficient for us to enable authentication for now. All right, we'll get back to this, and then I'm going to ask ChatGPT The next thing that we need to do is obviously write the admin.py function for the profiles model. Okay, I renamed it to profiles. So admin.py is what goes in here. All right, so let's get it to all right, so we need to say from models import profiles. What is going on here? Copy that. All right, import profiles, because I renamed it profiles. Okay, I renamed it. Please rename it profiles. All right, so that I can get the right code. There you go. So it imports profiles at the top over there, but I can just do that because I'm gonna write more models in there and I don't wanna type them all of them one by one. So import everything from there and then just copy that code. And this is not how I used to do my admin file, so I'm actually glad that I got ChatGPT to help me write it. All right, so you've got the user, the unique ID they created, last login, and all of that, and user, username, search fields, and whatever. All right, so I'm happy with that. And then so let's see, what else are we going to add? So we're going to need a reset link. So this reset link, I'm actually just going to copy it exactly the way that it is. I'm not going to change it. All right, and I'm going to put it in here inside of the models. All right, actually put it before the profiles because it just uses the user foreign key, which means one user can have more than one reset link, which is fine. Okay, so add this model also to the admin.py file, and the model I'm talking about is this one. Okay, reset link is this one. Cool, so let's copy that. So the reset link, let's see, it displays the user, unique ID, and that, and then the search field is the username and the unique ID. All right, and then inside of the models, we've added this model exactly as it is with the user. This is what we use to create a reset. This is like when the user, you'll see when we get to it, when the user forgets their password, we will, I have to write the model now, but like I'll show you later what it is for. It is for then being able to create a link that we send to the user to reset their password. All right, but this is just my own method of how I do that, and we'll go through it later. So for now, just copy the code because we're going to have we need a way to save the information and be able to verify when they click on the link that is the correct link. Okay. It's a makeshift way of doing it, but it works. And for no, as long as you're not like your application is not, saving money or some sort of important thing, I think you're okay. So once we've done that, let's see what else we need inside of our authentication. So the first thing, obviously, let's look at so we've done the models. We haven't done the functions. We're going to get to that later. We have the forms, but before we get to the forms, let's see. All right, we have the forms, and then we've got the views. All right, so let's get to the views first. So remember what I said, there are very, very specific tick boxes that you need to do when you do authentication, right? You've got a register page that allows a user to put in their username, their password, and their email address. Usually it's just, name, surname, and whatever. But in this case, we're only going to save, the username and the password for registration. And you obviously vet that information. And in our specific case, we're going to add an extra step where we're going to send them a code, right? And this code, you can see, we're going to determine it randomly. I'll go through this code with you, and then we email them a code. So we need to have a system for sending emails. So once we've done that, then they get that email, it comes back, and we go to another page where they can verify that that code that we have emailed to them here, and they enter the code into the system, and then we verify, we check that code to be correct. And if that code is false, we sort of count how many times they enter the wrong code. So we have a variable that we create called code tries, and we check it. We give them 4 opportunities to enter the correct code. And if they enter the wrong code 4 times, we reset everything and we send them back to the register page to do everything again. And if they enter the correct code, we then create the user class for them. Here we're going to need to obviously add our registration, our profiles thing, because we need for every time a user is created, a profile a class is also created. We don't have to do it like this. We can actually use the signals. All right, let me actually ask the Django. All right, not Django, ChatGPT, can you create a signals.py file that would use Django signals to create a new profile class whenever a new user is created. Whenever a new user is created. Let's just see if ChatGPT can do this for us. So we need like a it's called a signals.py file, okay, and it has the dispatch, the receiver, and if you've created it, you do that. Okay, and the decorator. All right, this. We need to import signals. Okay, but what if I want this to run automatically by itself? How can I add this to the it's not the admin, to the apps.py file. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so let's test this. We're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it signals.py, and we're going to paste all of this. Usually we can just copy it from the top there. There is a copy button there. So let's see what's going on here. So we are basically from the models, we import profiles, and we need a receiver and a post save and a user. So what does it do? It says the receiver is the sender. Yeah, the receiver. This is a receiver function, and whenever a new user is created, the sender is the user. So the sender is the model that actually sends the signal. So whenever a user is created, this signal will be sent, and this signal will look and see if it's a created that's going on. So if it's created, it will create a new profile, all right, and it will just create using the same instance of the user. And whenever a user is saved, it will save the profiles as well. Okay, so this is exactly what I want. And after we've done that, we need to then import inside of the app.config file. All right, we need to just do this inside of the apps.py. Inside at the bottom there, we need to just do that. Ready import. So we don't import my app, we import profiles. This is the name of the app. Is profiles.signals. All right, and do we import anything at the top? No, that's it. So this name is profiles, and that's what we import. Then it will run by itself, hopefully. All right, so let's save all of that. And so we have our signals done. We will test it when we are going through the authentication, and we'll test that actually the signals work. And if the signals work, it means all I need to do over here, like I've showed you, is just to create a user, right, with the email and password, and save that user, and then automatically a profile will be created for that user, and that profile will be created with the same information, with a default credit of 1,000, and that profile will be one-to-one relationship with the user, right? Then what else is there? Yeah, that's it. So let's go into some of the things that we need to do. And then this is obviously the login page. All right. And then this is the page for forgetting passwords and so forth and so forth. So let's go through this one by one. Let's start with the user registration. Okay. So before we do all of that, I just need to sort of copy all of this. Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna copy it because I know I will need it at some point, and I'll share this with you later on. So inside of our views, where we've got the home page over there, I'm just going to paste these, right? So .models, .functions, .forms. So let me create these files. I know I will need them anyway. So let's create a file called forms.py. Let's create a file called functions.py. We'll get to that later. I'm just looking at the code here that there's a functions that we're going to import. There's forms we're going to import. There's models. We already have our models file. And AI engine we've already imported before, right? Then we need to import login required and user passes test. What these do is they help you as decorators for certain views, all right? These are actually the opposite of each other. Not the opposite, but the login required is a built-in decorator that you can put in front of a view function, and when you do that, it means that for example, you could, if I copy this login required and I put it in here like that, like add login required, all right, what it will do is it will mean that you need to be logged in to access this page. So if somebody is not logged in, they will not be able to access this page. What it will do is that it will kick them to the login page, right? So that they can log in to access this page. This is useful to protect pages that you don't want people to access if they're not logged in. And for example, this page of ours, we're going to have to protect this page with login required. This means that you shouldn't be able to access this page if you're not logged in, right? Because we don't want people to just come in and already start chatting, because now because we are adding authentication and we are adding profiles, each and every conversation needs to be associated with a specific user. So how will we be able to know who you are when you're already chatting and you're not logged in? So the only way we're going to know is you need to be logged in, and then after you're logged in, then we can ask the system to provide us with your username. We can ask Django to give us the username, the logged in user, and then we can then find your previous conversations and things like that. But for us to do that, you need to be logged in. So obviously this page already we're going to have to protect with the login required. And by the way, when you use login required, you need to specify the redirect URL and things like that. So within our settings page, we need to specify the login. Let me see over here. I can see over there that we don't have it, but I will just add it later. Let me just check if it's there in here. Within the settings. There you go. Okay, we are going to paste that in here. This is very, very important setting. The moment you enter, you have authentication, you need to specify In fact, the redirect URL will be home, not dashboard. So when the person is logged in, it will take them to the home. So this is the name of the URL, the way you have it in your urls.py file. So in our urls.py file, we've got this called this as name, as a home. So that's the name of the page. So when a user is logged in and we need to redirect them, it will redirect them to the home page. If they are not logged in, it will redirect them to the login page. We haven't built the login page in the URLs yet, but we will build it. So that is why we have this login URL like that. Okay, this is very, very important. The next thing that is very, very important over here, which I'm going to copy, is this one. I know I'm showing you the passwords now, but I will change them as soon as this video is done. Okay, but I will show you, I'll go through them with you now to make sure that you can see how they work. This is very, very important. The moment we do email authentication, we need this. So I'm going to use an email address called hello.skoko.tech, and I've got a password over there. So you're going to create a new email profile, and this doesn't work very well with Gmail, by the way. And one of the best ways to do it is to have your own email account server that you buy from an email services provider. Or you can even use Mailgun. You know, Mailgun actually is a very nice tool online for applications like this. I would actually recommend you use Mailgun. So if you go to Mailgun, I'm just going to show you very, very quickly now how to do it, and then you'll be able to do it in future. If you go to Mailgun, you can create an account, and you can even get this for free, right? But you need a domain, because Mailgun does not provide you with a domain. You're going to need to have your own domain, right? And after you have your own domain, you're going to need to set your domain to Mailgun so that Mailgun can send emails using your domain and all sorts of things like that, all right? So what you're going to do is, this is a Mailgun account. So what you do is that you're going to create a domain. Let's say you created a domain on Namecheap. You're going to need a domain anyway to host this website. So either way, you're going to need a domain, right? So let's say you bought a domain at Namecheap. You can buy a domain and buy it with a hosting. And I can't cover the details of this right now. I hope you know this basics. If you don't, I've got a lot of tutorials already on my channel where I show you how to get hosting, where I show you how to get like a Namecheap domain and things like that, because it's another tutorial on its own if I have to cover this now. But I'm just giving you the quick steps, and you can then maybe even ask ChatGPT to help you or whatever, or you can try and find my previous tutorials. What you need, and this is you're going to need to do before you can continue with this part of the tutorial, because we're going to need to be able to send an email. Okay, you can go to Namecheap, you can buy a domain over here, and you can buy it with the hosting services, or so that with the DNS management services, so that you can manage the DNS. Alternatively, you can buy the domain without the hosting, and then after you've bought the domain, where you get to manage your domain, where they have the name servers, you can change from the default Namecheap name servers, and you can put in your DigitalOcean name servers, because DigitalOcean actually has DNS management services which you get for free, which I think is amazing. So you can buy a domain, and then you can transfer the name servers. It's called an NS record. So I can't show you my name servers here. Actually, I can't because I'm going to need to put in my 3-factor, 4-factor, 5-factor authentication to log into my Namecheap, because I've secured it quite a bit, because I've got a lot of domains that are very important over here. Nonetheless, once you log in to your Namecheap account, you can change the name servers. Just note this, write it down. Change the name servers to DigitalOcean name servers. If you don't know DigitalOcean name servers, what they are, you can even Google it, because it's a known thing. You can say, DigitalOcean name servers. You can Google it, and DigitalOcean name servers like that, and you can find them here, domains and DNS or something like that. Just look for it, and because it's very common what the name servers are. You can even create a customer service request and ask for the DigitalOcean name servers. Yeah, there you go. How to add domains. Yeah. So there's tutorials showing you exactly how to do it over here. You see, there you go. There you go. So these are the name servers and stuff like that. So go and Google this and figure it out, because I can't cover this in this tutorial. The point is you can buy a domain here and have the name servers point to DigitalOcean, and then you can then be able to control the DigitalOcean, the DNS records from DigitalOcean. And then when you work with Mailgun, all you need is to provide Mailgun a, they'll tell you how to update your DNS records so that they can manage your your email account. So you'll come over here and you can say add a domain, and then you can say my own domain, and then you put in your domain name, and then they show you, okay, for your own domain name, change this, DNS records, and then you go to DigitalOcean and you put those those records into DigitalOcean, and then from then onwards, Mailgun manages your email server. Then they'll give you a username and password, and then you come over here and you enter the username and password. That is a long way of doing it. The easier way of doing it is just buying a mail server already from somewhere like Namecheap already, where you can buy the domain and the mail hosting, right? And then you'll get a username and password and a host, and then you'll put it like that. Otherwise, you can buy this from any email service providing service, and all you need is to get the username and password of your email account and the host, and then you come and you enter it over here so that you can be able to send emails from that account programmatically from Django. You'll need that. However, I recommend Mailgun, especially if you're using a software as a service. I recommend Mailgun because Mailgun already has a lot of like controls and safety in place to prevent spam and your mail being recognized as spam, so that your mail ends up in the inbox of people and things like that, which is very, very important in SaaS providing services, that you don't want to be sending somebody an email verification email, but then the email ends up inside of their junk folder and they never see it. So Mailgun helps you definitely manage your reputation on your domain, to use that as a mail server so that your mails don't end up in the spam and stuff like that. So I personally use Mailgun, but it's a bit of a longer process to activate it. Maybe I'll do a tutorial for this, because this is a tutorial on its own if I have to take you through the steps of sending emails using Mailgun. Okay, and let me know in the comments below if this is something you're gonna need help with. But I've already covered the steps, and if you just like replay what I've explained and redo it and Google the stuff, you'll figure it out. And as a developer, you need to be able to do that anyway. If you know exactly how to do something, you should be able to Google the details of it from things like ChatGPT and Google itself and figure it out, and that's how you learn. But nonetheless, I've got my email details over there, right? So I can send an email, right? And then we go back to where were we? We go back to our views, all right? And then so we've copied all of that. Let's copy the logout and this anonymous required, and I'll explain to you what anonymous required is. All right, so basically anonymous required is a decorator which we have recreated and built using the user passes test function that we have imported from the same place where we import login required. Now this is something that you will get all the time, and in every Django application you will need this. So just copy it and I'll explain to you what it does. Because the login required is a decorator that controls a path, that protects a path from people that are not authenticated. So you don't want someone to access that route if they're not logged in, right? But what the opposite of login required is anonymous required. This means that you don't want someone to access that path if they're already logged in. So for example, if you think about your login page, because I'm going to build the login page, and the login page is going to be a page which takes in the username and the password and someone logs in. The registration page is the same thing. It's a page that takes in the username and the password and it registers the person. But you don't want someone to get to that page if they're already logged in, because then they'll be logged in and then they'll be creating another registration. You understand? So you almost need both the login required, and the opposite of login required, which is login is not, you must not be logged in, which is what we call anonymous required. But unfortunately, Django doesn't have a built-in anonymous required function the way it has a built-in login required, but there is a helper user passes test which you can download from the same place where we download login required, and then you have to just rewrite this function over here the way I've written it, and you can copy it and I'll make this code available, right? So basically what it does, what all of this does is it uses users passes test, and it creates a test for checking if the user is anonymous. So an anonymous user is a user which is unknown, and if a user passes this test of you are anonymous, you are definitely not logged in because you are anonymous, and you need to be anonymous to access this path. And if you fail this test, it kicks the user to a different route, which is in this case needs to be the home. It means you're logged in already. So if you're logged in already and you try to get into the registration page, it should just take you to the home page because you're already logged in. So this is now a new decorator we've built, and we will put this decorator in front of our login and our registration and our reset password page, for example, because we don't want people to access those view functions if they are logged in. You understand? So building an authentication flow has a lot of elements to it, right? And most of them are exactly the same, which is why I use my, authentication code thing that I put here, and I usually just reuse a lot of the functions and stuff like that. And you can even put this in ChatGPT and ask it to check this code for you if you're not sure, so I can be like, check this function for me. So let me write it like this. How could you improve it? Check this function for me. Can you would you improve it? Or is it fine the way it is? Because this is a function I use all the time, right? I've used it in a lot of my applications, but maybe ChatGPT has a better way of doing it. This is what I've been using ChatGPT for lately is, check my functions. What do you think? So ChatGPT is fine with this function. Yeah, ChatGPT is fine with the function, so I'll leave it because I searched this function a long time ago, and and it worked fine, and so far it has not given me issues, so I'm gonna continue using it as it is. So now we can create the register view function. And to create the register view function, we're gonna now use that anonymous required decorator. But before we get to that, you can see this view function has got a form. All right, it's got a user registration form, and it's got an HTML page, register.html. So for us to be able to get these, before we can even use this view function, we're going to need that form, and we're going to need that HTML. The form is going to be the easier part. I can just go into my forms over here, and I'm just going to copy these forms, all of the functions in here. So let's just copy them and paste them inside my forms.py, and I'll explain to you what these forms are. So this form, the first one is a user registration form. All right, and it it I don't know whether the right word is to say extends, or it takes in the user creation form, which is a standard Django form. A standard Django user creation form is a form for creating a new user. And that's what we're trying to do on our registration page. We are trying to create a new user. So we are taking in their email and their password. Their password, we're only taking in the email and the password. We're not even going to do the username. So our form will have 3 fields. It will have a email, a password, and 2 passwords, because we want them to enter the password twice so that we can confirm that they've entered the correct password. That's another thing people do all the time. You'll be surprised. And even you could just have a typo and think you're entering the password and enter it wrongly, and then you forget it. So at least if you enter it twice, you can make sure that you've entered it correctly, and then you have password 1 and password 2. And you do not rename these fields, right? Password 1, password 2, and email, do not rename them. Like, don't call this user email, for example. All right, it has to be email and password 1 and password 2, because it is a standard user creation form variable. All right, so and that's how it's called in Django, so you have to name it correctly. The thing that this form allows you to do, and the reason why I do it like this at all, is so that I can specify my own placeholders and my class, so for example, I have form control here because I'm using Bootstrap, and I want to specify the class as form control. I might want to specify a margin bottom MB3, right? So actually, let me do that. Let me paste all of this form control. So I'm searching for form control, and then I'm gonna say MB3 form control. Let's remove the comma there, and let's remove the thingy there. So I want to replace everywhere I have form control with form control and margin bottom 3, okay? Because I find the forms look better with a margin bottom. So the reason why I do the forms like this, it gives me a little bit more control over being able to specify, things like this, for example. So like the margin and the form control and stuff like that. So I've got my forms, all right? And the user login form is very simple. It just takes in the username and the password. Obviously, when the user logs in, they just put in the username and the password. And the forgot password form just takes in the email address. This is if they forget their password. You just take in the user address, the email address, and then you can send them the forget password email. And then finally, the verify code form. This one is this one is also like just to verify the code. They just need to put in a number input of the code that you've emailed to them, and you'll see all these different forms. These are all the forms required for the complete authentication process, right? You need to be able to register, to log in, to check the forget the password, and to check the verifying code, everything. All right, so these are all the standard forms required, and just make some space at the bottom there so you can see what everything is. And then we're just going to save this. So obviously we need the HTML pages. For all of this. For these you need at least a registration, a login, a forgot password, and at least 4 different HTML pages. Let's see over here how many HTML pages we have. So under templates, under authorization, I've got, it is exactly these ones, 4. The code, the forget, the login, and the register. So let's go build these HTML pages. So we're gonna use Bootstrap. Bootstrap examples. Bootstrap version 5 is fine. CDN starter is the one that we used, if you remember, but that's not what I'm looking for. Let's see examples. Oh no. No, I should just scroll down because I don't want to download all of these things. Oh my gosh, but I've downloaded it already. You can do that, and then you can have a look at the code, but then it will download all of these bootstraps, and I've done this before, so I don't need them I don't need all of them. I actually just need the authentication page, the login page, this one, the sign-in page. So let's just open this in a new tab, this sign-in page. So this is the page that I want. Okay, so what I can do is just look at the source of this, right? And this is basically the source. I can just copy the source and do it like that. So let's go in here under profiles, login. So this is the login page. So let me remove this in here, and copy this instead. Let's copy that in here, and let's have a look at what is in here. So obviously over at the top here, I want to replace this with Scholar Online. I can actually have a look at my other index. So what I was gonna say is I can copy the head, you know, what's in the head over here, and go into the login and put what's in the head over there. So I've got two heads, which is a problem, of course, but I just want to Scholar ChatGPT. This is gonna be login auth. Let me say auth. Scholar ChatGPT and dish. So we've got 5 icons and all sorts of other things. Style, theme, color. So I think there's some style in here. Okay, I'm gonna try and remove the entire head. This entire head. I'm just gonna delete it. The second head. So I'm gonna leave the one head and delete the second head, okay? I'm gonna leave the body as it is. And the script at the bottom there, I'm going to go and look at the script inside of my index. And these two scripts, I'm just gonna copy them as they are and paste them into the login, because this is a CDN. So underneath the main, where there's that one script which is going to the physical file, I'm just gonna replace it with the other two scripts. And then let's see, so this will be 2023, right? And then we've got the username and the password. And then over here, light, dark. So what is this? This is toggling the light and dark, okay? So this is this button over here, this button, this one, where you can change it from light and auto and dark. This is useful. It's a nice feature in Bootstrap 5 for like being able to switch between. But personally, I really couldn't be bothered, so I'm just gonna remove all of this. Where is it now? Where did it start? Started here. I don't know, you know. Yeah, remove the things I shouldn't remove. So let's just remove all of this. We don't care whether you can have a light or a dark theme or whatever, but if you want, obviously you can keep those in there. And this is just the SVG for, I think it's the SVG for this Bootstrap, which we also don't really want. But let's at least save this for now and just look at the Bootstrap, at the, you know, like the file, you know, manually. So let me go and look for where the file is. Scholar courses. I think I've saved it in here, and I think it's called Scholar Chat. And I just want to go into the templates, the profiles, and this login.html is the file that I've been editing. So I just want to open it in my HTML to have a look at it. So this is not what we want at all. So it looks like we're missing some styling over here. Obviously it's going to be a bit of a mission trying to restyle it ourselves. So let's try and see what we are missing. So what I've done is over here, you can download examples. So you can download the actual code, because I think maybe there's some very page specific styling around, you know, positioning this in the middle of the page. So just download this. And actually I had already downloaded it by mistake, remember? And if you find where you've downloaded it from, let's see. So what I did is that I opened because it was a zip, opened the zip folder, look inside the examples, because what we want is to find that specific CSS inside of the examples, and you go into the login or the sign in example, which is this one, and you can see there's a CSS file in here. So just open this CSS and see what styling is in here. So what I did was that I opened the file, and this is the CSS file. You can see it's a few lines of code, so which makes it simple actually. All right, so you've got email and password. So you've got an input of type email and an input of type password inside of the form sign in. So just copy this, right? And what I did is that I copied it and I'm gonna paste it inside of my head, right? After the bootstrap main whatever, I'm just gonna put in a script, not a script, a style, a style, what you call HTML element, and then paste that inside of that style like this. So the HTML, the body 100% form sign-in is just to specify the maximum width of this form sign-in. If you look over here, this form sign-in is the class inside of the main. So the entire main falls in here, and it gives it a maximum width of 100. I mean of 300 pixels. So it goes into the middle of the page. So instead of filling the whole page, it will go into the middle of the page. And then it gives it some padding and some Z index, and then it obviously like just has a margin bottom of 1 and 10 pixels and all of that. So you'll see this margin is a bit bigger and whatever. So just save this. It's just the extra styling for the page. But we're gonna update our entire CSS. We don't have a CSS file. Otherwise, the best practice would be to save this inside of a CSS file and put that inside of your static folder for Django. But we are gonna update our entire static folder. So for now, I just want something that works so that we can at least move on and do the other pages. And then later on, when we update our entire templating, then we'll do it properly and save all of this inside of the static folder the way it's normally done in proper professional applications. So once you've done that and you save this, you can see it puts everything nice in the middle the way I want it. And okay, so this looks much better. Let's fix this and put in it looks like there's a place here for an image. So let's put in our image. We can use the same image we used before. That's a nice thing about it. Let's check what that image was. Can actually just copy this location here and replace that in there. And you've got please sign in. So this is the sign in page. So let's like put these separately so we can be able to replicate the other pages. I'm not gonna put in the remember me at all. And then I'm gonna leave the copy for the bottom. Okay, so we've got the button, and there's this button primary, and it says sign in. I'm happy with that. And then the email address and the ID, and obviously there is some margins around here. You can see the margin bottom here is, for the email is 1 pixel, and for the password is like longer. So if I have 2 passwords, let me see what that would look like. Say I have password 1 and password 2, because that's what I'll need for the registration page. You see there will be two spaces because of this password bottom whatever. So maybe let me do the exact same thing here and make this -1 pixel like that, so that there's also no space between the username and the password. But then I'll need space between this and this, so I can just put in like a normal break. Let's try that, like a normal break. All right, so let me see now the registration page. Cool. So you've got the password 1, password 2 for register, and it will work the same thing for logging in 2023. Let's say 2020. Let's say Scholar Online. Wait. Scholar Online 2023. Like that. Then I'm very happy with the way this page looks, right? Awesome. Scholar Online 2023, please sign in now. What we're going to do is that we need the exact same template replicated about 4 times, because we need the login page. So this is actually the register page, and we need the login page, and we need the, we need 4 different HTMLs. And instead of copying and pasting everything, what I'm going to show you is something that we use in templating. So for templating is, I'll have one layout template. All right, and then inside of that layout template, I'll have the base of what I'm trying to build, and then the other templates which have a little bit of changes here and there, then I will put that separately. So let's copy all of this and put in a layout template. All right, so inside of profiles over here, I will create a new file and I will call it layout.html. In fact, I'll call it auth layout.auth.html, like that, and I will paste this in here. All right, and because this is Django, I think we need to, what is it we need to do? We need to load static at the top, right? We need to load static, but it's just because it's a habit, but I don't really need it right now. So we need to load static, and then we've got the logo will remain the same. So if we look at this, the logo will remain the same. The only thing that will change will be from here to there based on which page we are in. So from please sign in, so the form also pretty much remains the same, right? But I don't know if I want a form to sit in a layout template. So I will take the entire form with me. So this entire form, I will put inside of this entire form. I'll put it inside, I'll call it block body. All right, block body, and then I will say end block, right? And then inside of the login and the register and all of those other things, I will put in what needs to go into the body of the thing. So so inside of this profiles, let's create a new file, and we'll call this file register.html. And I will then obviously we need to do block body. All right, block body and block. Right, and then we're gonna paste that in here. I'm gonna have a look at my other templates that I've built over here for my register and see what I've got. Obviously I did load static, so let's copy the load static. That's important. So this is why I keep my sort of reference files, so that I don't forget anything. And then the crispy form tags, which is very, very important. Now crispy form tags we are going to need, but I had a bit of a challenge importing the crispy form tags the last time, and I'm trying to remember how I resolved it. I just needed to load a different version of the crispy form tags. I'll find out which one it is, and I will help you guys install the correct version. Okay, so crispy form tags, you need that. So when you install crispy form tags, I think they've changed the code, they've broken the code actually with the latest crispy forms installation. So when you load, you need to load a very specific older version of it so that it works. And then inside of the form content, I think there's just one more thing I need, is the messages. The messages are important for like error messages and things like that, so that you can like let people know if they've put in the wrong password, just for communication purposes. So when we send messages back, we send that way. But I'm gonna put my messages inside of I'm gonna put it inside of the layout template, because I want to put the messages once. So the messages are sort of like your communication messages. Like for example, someone entered the wrong password and you want to send back a message to them and say, you've entered the wrong password. You want to just use the messages there. All right, and this is the code you need for messages. Just copy it exactly the way it is. The messages exist in the context by its automatically. You don't have to like send it forward if it's there, but you just have to make sure that inside of your views, that you've got messages like that at the top. importing it from Django, and then that inside of your settings that you've updated the message. So I didn't do it in here, so let me just check it inside of the settings over there. You just need to have this message tags reference to sort of help Django get the right type of message. So for example, message success is success, but in Bootstrap it's called success, so that's fine. But warning, for example, danger, inside of Django it's error, we'll say message error, but in Bootstrap it's called danger. So it's sort of like just to map those things. And then we need to obviously import messages in here as well. All right, at the top there, and then this will work fine without an issue. So then we'll have our messages working without giving us problems if you can get all of that done right. Okay, then let's go back to our auth. This is now our, if I'm going a little bit too fast, just pause and go back and watch this, because I'm developing this in my head as I go along, and I do this all the time, so I might go a little bit faster for beginners, but everything that I will build here, I will show on screen. So if you get an error and something that you're doing is not exactly the way I did it, just go back through the video and watch it again. There's nothing I'm going to write that I'm going to do it off camera. I do everything on camera, so if you miss something, just go back on the video and watch it again. That's why it's on YouTube, so you can watch it as many times as you like. Then so this is just an alert that will communicate whatever the messages we have. The messages we will send ourselves from the view function. So I'll show you exactly how we do that. If there's something, if it's a success, we'll send a success message. If it's error, we'll send an error message. But messaging is a very important part of building an application, so you can communicate to the user. If, for example, they entered the wrong password, you want to be able to tell them that, because from the view function we'll be able to test the password, and if the authentication fails, we need to reload the page and tell the user this is why the authentication has failed. The password you entered is incorrect, so that they know why they're not logging in. So that's the importance of messages, the very crucial part of building a especially an authentication flow. And what I like about Django is that a lot of these things are built in. Otherwise I would have had to design my own alert, and then put in the message myself, and it would have been a longer process not using the built-in Django messaging, right? But then so let's see, maybe you want to put in a break in here because it might be too close to the body, but then it's inside an if. So this only displays if a message is available, right? So if for messages, if there's a message available in the context, then this will display. So this break will only display it inside of this for loop, right? So it will only display if there is a message to display. Then inside of the register, I've now pasted my block body. So for registration, I will say, please, let me say create an account, create a profile, or register a profile. And to register a profile, you need to enter your email address and your password You need to enter your password twice. But we're not going to do this form like this, all right? We're going to do this differently. But let me just check the class. So the class is form control, and the class for the entire thing is form floating, all right? So I'm not going to put in this big class. I'll just remove this entire form, because we're going to do the forms the Django way, all right? So in here we're going to say register. So this button will say register, it will be a register button, and then we'll put in our form here. So let me see how we've done it in there. So we have the CSRF token and the crispy form, okay? So let's copy that. The CSRF token is very important in Django. This is your security token, all right? What it is, I know people do it and don't even know what it means, or sometimes you will do it without knowing what it means, especially if you've copied and pasted code so many times. So let me explain to you what it means, or what it's there for, and why you really need it. And Django doesn't actually allow you to build a form without it, so you need it either way. The thing is, you will be sending in form information from the HTML. So this HTML is going to render like this, and it will have input blocks where you can input an email address, input a password, and input another password or whatever. And so this is an input field, which means a user or a client on your application sending in information will be using this front end to input manual information, type it into these input boxes. When you click sign in, right, this browser will take all of this information in a form, right, and it will send this information to your server. Right now, Django does it through through the forms, and this information gets sent through the form into the server, and it gets accepted in the request.post inside of the view function of the page where the form is coming from. All right, now this form, let me just it's a good thing I talked about that, because then I remembered you need to have an action and a method. All right, so what is an action? An action is the route in your application where the form must go. So an action, this can be a URL. It can be a URL for, I don't know, which page is this? This is the register, right? It can be a URL for register, which means this form will be delivered to this register URL. And then inside of the register URL, you will build a function to deal with the form. But for Django, you don't even have to specify this, because the page that the form is on, that HTML page, it will send it to the same view function of that HTML page. So this is not necessary to do with Django, but you might want to do it just for good practice. Then you have to specify the type of form. You have a get and a post method. A post method will be sent into the request.post as a post form, and a get will be sent to the request.get as a get form, as a decorator, as a get in the URL. Now, with forms, you always have to use the post, because that's how you're going to be able to get the variables out of the form, and a lot of other automations happen that way inside of the form, right? Now, if I was a bad actor, a hacker, or anything like that, these templates, the way they work, if I could get to your website and I knew the action, which is the URL, I can send a post request from anywhere. I don't have to send the post request from your HTML. I could use Postman, and I could create a post request, and all I need to know is the URL of your website and the specific action or the specific page where I want to post this thing to. And if you have a form accepting requests on that page, it will accept whatever I send it. So if I wanted to send malicious code, a bug, or anything, all I need is your action URL, and for me to send a post request from anywhere. I can send it from Postman, I can send it from my own Python application, I can send it from my own browser. There's nothing to stop it from happening. Now, that means that your application is vulnerable from anybody just sending a post request to it, and they could send a bug that reaches your application and then runs and does something. Now, obviously, we have to accept forms, because that's how the application works. So the way we protect it is we send a sort of a secret code with our own HTML pages. So inside our form HTML, we create a token, which we call a CSRF token, and it expires. So just because you knew the CSRF token now, in a few seconds it will be different. It changes all the time, because somebody could technically go and send a form and see what the token is, and then use it in their whatever code. So the token is actually always it's constantly changing. It's not the same token all the time. So Django has got a built-in method of managing this token, all right, and being able to send the token with the form. And inside of the view function, it actually checks that the token is a valid token before processing the form. This is why if I removed this CSRF token from this form and I try to process this form, it will give me an error. It will not accept it. I need the token. All right. And I just need to write it like this. Django manages a token in the background. If you want to see what the token looks like, you can print it out from the view function. You can even have a look at it from the request.post, and you will see it's like a long string, right? But you don't need to see what it looks like. All you need is to include it, and Django does this in the background automatically, all by itself, right? Without you even doing it. You just have to include it in the form. This is one of the other things security wise, why you want to use a web, a platform like Django, because it has a lot of these things built in. And if you were doing your own form in Flask, for example, you might have to build in the CSRF methodology yourself to manage, the security of the forms that are getting sent in from the front end. So this is very, very important for you to even understand what it means. And the beauty of ChatGPT is that if you didn't know, you could actually just ask ChatGPT, okay, what is this and why do I need? What is this? What is this? And why do I need it in all my Django forms? And then you put it in there and you ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT actually is going to explain to you exactly what I explained to you now, and exactly how it works and why you need it inside of the forms and exactly how you do it. So it shows you the action for the form there, and you put it in the form. It's a post, so I remove the action in my side, but you can put it in if you want. And then you put in the token. It explains how it works, and then it explains to you, so a CSRF attack. So CRF stands for what is it? Cross-site request forgery. Okay, so cross-site request forgery to protect your forms. Okay, so a CSRF attack is when an unauthorized user tricks a victim into submitting malicious requests. To prevent this, Django includes a CSRF protection. Then when you do a form, you need to include all of this, tag with a form, and then it explains to you how to do it. But what I explained now is exactly what it is. So then we put that in there, and then we put in the form, and we put in a crispy form like that. And let's see, what else do we need over there? I'm going to specify the width as 100 like that, and then not specify the height. Okay, yeah, let me do that so that we don't squish the thing. And then let's just put the name in this, que say Scholar Online logo. That is what this image is. And so this form is for registering a profile. So what we've done here is that we created a register form. We specify what the form is. We are extending a, we need to actually put that in here as well. So how do you do that? You can actually just, I think you need to put it before the load static. Because this extends a, and I'm just going to make sure if it's correct. I think you need to say extends, and then you put in the template name that it's extending. So this is extending this template called auth, but you need to put the entire path of the form, of where the HTML is that it is extending. So it's inside of the profiles folder, and inside of the profiles folder is called auth.html. And then I'm going to just ask ChatGPT, right? How do you specify an extends HTML tag for Django HTML files which extend layouts defined elsewhere. Let's hope it understands what I'm trying to say. Extends based.html. There you go. So you would say extends, and then whatever it extends, and then you put in the block of whatever it is that you are extending. So in our case, it's block body, which is this block body, because we called it block body in here. So whatever you called it here, if you could change this name, so you could call it block content, block body. You could even extend multiple parts of the template. So for example, if you had very specific scripts that need to go in here, like a different script that is a page specific script, you could create another extension here and say block script, for example, and block, and then inside of your template. After block body, you could add another block script and then put the scripts that are only page specific, so that you don't put your scripts inside of the layout. So inside of the layout, your scripts and your CSS, you want it to be the script and the CSS that are on all the pages that this layout is going to be extending, right? Because you don't want to put in page specific scripts, because it takes longer to run a script, and you can put it, it's not going to harm the page, but it's not good practice. Then you want to put that page specific script only on the page itself. So this blocks, you could have multiple blocks on one file, is what I'm trying to say to you. You could have a block over there. You could even have a block for the, sometimes I use blocks even for the meta of the page, for the meta description, for the SEO, because every page has its own different SEO description, and I don't want to put it inside of the layout, so I put it on. Sometimes even the titles, because you see this title over here. This title says authscholar.gpt, right? The problem with having this title is now all the pages that are going to be extending this are going to be given the same title, and later in your analytics you won't know which page is which. So maybe you might want to even remove the title over here. Instead of specifying the title there, you might want to say block title. Let me show you now how to put it the other blocks. So you want to say block title like that, and end block, and block, and it doesn't matter where in the CSS this is. Over here, all you need to do is to put in the block title. So let me just copy it again so that I don't get the spelling wrong. All you need is to put in the block title in here like that, right? And then you put this in here. So therefore you need to specify that you can specify the title on every page. So this page, obviously it needs to have its own title, so you can say this is the register page. And then when you get to the login, you can give it a different title and so forth. But the only thing you need to remember is, I think the order must be right. But it doesn't matter that this is inside of the head and this one is inside of the body. It doesn't matter, just as long as you specify the blocks. So this is the register page, then this is the whatever. So now what we can do is that we can copy this same thing and put it inside of our login, right? Inside of the login. And over here is now the login instead of the register page. So these are specific things you want to specify in the page itself. You can put them in there. And then obviously this one is sign in, right? Sign in. It's not register anymore. And the button will also say sign in. And the form will be the form that comes from the login page, right? So let's have a look here at our login page. Yeah, we basically have the same thing, login and so forth, right? And then we need two more. We need a code.html, and we need forget.html. But all the forms are exactly the same. So actually what we can do is we can do the exact same thing. Just copy this. And we need a new page called forget.html. So forget.html is now is the forget password page. Password page. And obviously over here you want to ask the person, did you forgot password? Because they will see that, oh, you forgot your password. And then here you just it's just a submit button. You can just put in submit, so they submit if they forgot their password. And the code code.html, just paste that in there. So this one is like email verification. And then here is your verification code. And submit the verification code. That's it. So you see how easy it is to build 4 different HTML pages. Instead of building them all one by one, we just do one layout for a page, and then we extend that layout with the different HTMLs for all the different pages. And we've got all our HTMLs to go. We could even like test and see what these pages look like for now. But before we can do that, this would only display in Django. So I need to have my view, my URLs. So let me specify my URLs. Here they are. So I need all of these URLs. Let's copy them and go into our URLs, and let me just label them nicely. These are the authentication flow URLs. All right. The login, the register, the verify email. So this is the verify email view function. The logout, the one for forgetting, and then the one for resetting your password. So resetting your password and forget is actually two different URLs. You need the URL where they land on to enter, you know, to put when they reset their password. No, you need the URL where they say, yes, I have forgotten my URL, and then they put in the email address, and then the one they land in to reset the password. That's why there's two of them, but you'll see how it works when we get to that. I know the tutorial is getting longer and longer, but this is what it takes to build authentication, full authentication, and this is what you need for a software as a service application. So you gotta go through all of this. So let's go through the view functions one by one. The logout is the easiest one, all right? So if you look at the logout, we can even start with that. So let's put it at the top of our list, in the order in which we will do them. We'll do the logout, and then we'll do the register after the logout, because it's easier to do the register before the login. And then the verify email we need to do after the register, because the register and the verify email, they go together. So actually, let me put it like this. Yeah. So we're going to do the logout, the register, verify, and login go together. We'll do this together, and then we'll do the forget and reset. They go together. Okay. So the logout, over here, we're importing the views. All right. So inside of our views, we need a logout view, and it must be called logout. Okay. It must be called logout, because inside of the URLs, we called it logout, views.logout. So this is the function inside of the views file, which is the views at the top there. We imported views. So the function is called logout. Inside of your views.html, you call the function logout, and you just call auth logout request, and then redirect to login. You know, very easy. So auth logout, we have imported auth at the top. So auth you import from the same place you import user, and we're going to use this auth quite a bit. So that's the logout page. Very, very easy. The home page we've already done. I'm going to push right to the bottom, because I want to do all my authentication pages before I get to the logout, to the home page. So now the next one is, we said the next one that we'll do is the register. Okay, so let's go over here and let's copy the code for the register. The code for the register is this one. Let's copy it. And note the anonymous required decorator. So note this decorator. I've already discussed this decorator. I've defined it at the top there. We need it in all the pages where the user must land on that page if they are not logged in. And if they are logged in and they land on this page anyway, which you can't stop people from doing, they'll just get rerouted to the home page because they're already logged in, and then they'll be able to access the home page because they are already logged in. Understand? And then in the home page, we need the login required. So you need to be logged in to access the home page, right? And then all our pages, we must put the decorators on. When you start using decorators, you need to put them on all the pages. You can't put it here and not put it there. And you must decide whether it's the login or the anonymous required. But there's even, we can even get into more complex decorators, you know, with time. And you can use this anonymous required actually to build very, very complicated decorators that look at certain things. I mean, I've used this to check if somebody's subscription is valid, and we're going to do that. I'll show you, like, because now we're going to be able to manage that through their profile, which is connected to the user. So you can use the user, you know, variable over here, and you will see how we can really use decorators to like make this even more complicated, because later on maybe we want to make sure that the person has credits. And the credits are valid. How do we check for that the credits are valid before they access the view function, so that we can let them know that, hey, actually you don't have enough credits, you need to update, or things like that. And I'll show you all of that. Just keep on the tutorial and we'll get to it. So now we're on the register page. So obviously, if the request method is get, we display this user registration form. This user registration form is the form we defined inside of our forms.py, which is this user registration form. And we've already gone through this. So it's the form which has the email, password 1, password 2. So that's the user form. And inside of there, register.html, when we display the form like this, it will be displaying the user registration form, because that's the form that we're defining inside of the request.get as the user registration form. Now, inside of your HTML, you don't have to define the form manually by saying, you don't have to say to define the form, the username, the password every time on the HTML. You just need to do it inside of your forms, and then you call the form inside of the view, and then you define it like that. Okay, so this is very basic Django things. If you've done a Django tutorial in the past, you know exactly what this is. And the only thing that you need to do here is the HTML that you display must be the right HTML. So instead of saying authorization register, we know that our HTMLs are sitting inside of profiles. So what we can do, we can even just replace all. So do a find to find all the authorization dash for the HTML thingies, and just replace this with what is it? Profiles dat replace all. So then it sorts that out, and then the file is called register.html. So if the request or method is get, we will get the form, and then we will send it to the context, which we've defined as a context there, and then we will then render the page. And when we send it to the context inside of the register.html, we can then call the form and use the crispy sort of form template filter to display the form nicely. Otherwise, you'll see the form looks weird if you don't use that crispy form helper that is built in Django. And that's how you're able to sort of display all of these classes, like your margin bottom and form control and so forth, right? And then the post is the same thing. You now this is where the request.post comes in, and I told you that the CSRF then gets checked in here, but you don't even have to write the code for it. It's built into Django, all in here already. All you need to do is to get the request.post. So this is actually the object that gets posted in here, and in our specific case, it's going to be the email and the password 1 and password 2, because that's what you have specified inside of your forms.py, password 1 and password 2. So there are certain things that I'm checking manually over here. The first thing is, this is a generic problem with Django, and not with Django, but like with all of authentication flows. And this is a very important thing. You will be surprised how many people do this. And I used to have this problem with so many of my applications in the past. When you say to somebody, enter your email address over here, right? Let's say my email address is admin@scolo.online, right? You have no idea how many people will say their email address is admin like this @scolo.online, right? Some people will enter their email address like this. Some people will enter it like admin@scolo.online, or they'll put everything in capital letters like this, which is fine. Django will still recognize this. The problem is they'll register like this, and then when they log in, then they will do this. And then when Django tries to compare the login username and password from the one that is recorded in the registration, then it doesn't match, because they used different, and some people even use this to trick your application. I've seen people actually do this on purpose, which is ridiculous. The amount of time people have. So the point is, when you're creating the user and registration profiles, is that you actually want to standardize the way people enter their email addresses. And Django does not do this for you automatically, by the way. This is the one thing that I think if they fix future Django versions, they must fix this. to do this automatically, because you might not pick it up if you're doing this thing for the first time. So what I normally do is that I do this manually myself. That is why I'm actually processing this form manually, is that I will go and get that email address and I'll remove the empty spaces and then I'll lower it. What this will do is that it will now it will give me the lower version of, like, whatever they've entered here, it doesn't matter, whether they put in big, small letters. I will use lowercase letters, and if they've left empty spaces, which they do as well, by the way, somebody will enter an email address and put an empty space at the beginning or at the end. Maybe they copied and pasted it from somewhere, right? And so all of those things you've got to manage, and this is just like usability. So I remove the empty spaces and I lower it. This is just for registration. And I'll do this as well when I'm checking in the login, because they sometimes do it even for the login. And then so I remove the empty spaces and I lower it, but I don't do that for the password, because maybe they put in an actual empty space as a character in a password, because you can actually do that, by the way, right? An empty space is a character. So if I entered 2 empty spaces in here, this email address is 2 empty spaces and then the email address. So it's a character. And if I put an empty space in a password, that is actually a character in a password. This is a tab. This is a password. So maybe somebody put the empty space on purpose on the password side, so I don't remove it. But on the username side, I definitely remove the empty spaces and I lower it. So this is very important piece of line that will save you a lot of headaches, because Django doesn't do this automatically. Right, then what I do is I check that the user exists, right? Because if the user exists already, it will not allow you to create another user with the same email. So maybe somebody forgot they created a profile and they want to come in with the same profile again. So the first thing I do is I just say user objects, which means you need to import user at the top. So I check this email address. Does this user already exist in my system? Right? And if the user exists, so this is where the messages come in, right? Messages error. So it will send an error message and redirect back to the register. And the register means it will redirect back to the same page. So it will send you back to the same page, but it will sort of reload the page. When it redirects, it reloads the page. So it will clear whatever was on the page before, but it will display the message for you. So this message that I want to display, the error messages, will be displayed in this location where I've put in the messages. You see this location where I've put in the messages? It will display the message over here. So I think it's before the form. Yeah. So it will display the message, and then it will be the message tag. The type of alert will depend on the tag. And the tag in this specific case is an error message. This is where inside of the settings.py, we adjust the tags, because Bootstrap coding for the tag is not error. The Bootstrap coding, for example, in here, inside of the auth, where's my auth file? If I say alert error, because I'm trying to say put in the tag of the message exactly as it is. If I say alert error, Bootstrap does not have an alert error. It has an alert danger. So this is why inside of the settings.py file, I have mapped the type of messages to the type of alert that Bootstrap has built in. It has info, success, warning, and danger. So now inside here, when it says messages error, it will actually show an danger alert, right? And if I have a message success, it will show a success alert. So our success is the same, so that's not a problem. And then if there is a message info, you can send an info message, it will show alert info and so forth. So now I will say a user with this email address, this is the message that will be sent through. So you'll see inside of the auth, it will display the message there, right? And then it will show that alert type in there. All right, so that's fine. So then that's how the messages work. So every time I want to re-communicate a message to the person, because now I'm reloading this page for the user is going to be surprised. Oh, I entered an email address and the page just reloads. What's going on? Maybe it's going to think the application is not working, but the message now communicates and tells the user, oh, no, the page is reloading because this email that you've entered already exists in the system. So we can actually create another profile with the same email address. You need to use a different email address. You understand? So there's a lot that goes into building an auth system, right? But this is important to do this check. Then what we do is that, then you'll see over here, because we need to, after we've collected this email address, provided it doesn't already exist, now we can go to the next step, because the next step is that we want to now send in the verification code, because we want to verify the email address before we actually create a profile, right? So this is why we are doing this thing manually. Somebody might look at this tutorial and be like, but Bertha, Django does all of this registration stuff for you. You just do a register form and register the user. Why are you going through all the steps of lowering and checking and da-da-da-da? Because we are customizing the login process to fit our needs. Number one, we want to send a verification email. We want to verify the email address that they've given us, because I don't want to save an email address in my database that I haven't verified. I don't want someone to just give me an email address, which I've seen happening in my other application, in Scholar Online. You'll be surprised. People use fake email addresses and create profiles and then go into your system and abuse your credits, and abuse your free courses and download those courses and sell them online. And people are just crazy. Like, you give your time to do this and help people, and then people just want to steal from you, right? So nowadays, for all my applications, I no longer allow a person to log in if I have not verified the email address. And it's very, very simple. I just send you a verification code. And it's also a two-factor authentication to help somebody that if your your email address was being used by somebody else, they would need to have access to that email, right? By getting the code that I'm going to send to them. Very, very important step. So, and that is going to be loaded on a different page, but this information has been saved here. So there's two things you can do. The first thing you can do is that you can create a temporary model, because that's the only way to save data in between pages. You can create a temporary model, and inside of that model, you can go inside of your our models.py, and you can create a model, and you can just call it temp profile model, where you just save the username and password in there that the person has entered. But that's a bit risky, number one, because you'll have to save the password inside of your Django admin, right? And the second thing is, maybe many people will not verify their thing, and then you'll end up having a lot of these profiles that end up just wasting up your space. So for me, what I found works 99% of the time is to save this in your session, because Django has a built-in session object which saves information in the user's browser inside of the session, the logged in session at the time. So the session is a very useful, it's an object called request.session, and you can save anything in there, and you'll be able to re-access it using the same key. All right. So here I'll say request.session, I'll create a key called email, and then I'll put in that email address. And then I'll create another one called password, and I'll put it in there. And it's safe to save the password in the request.session because it saves it in the browser. So the user is saving their own password in their own browser. You know what I'm saying? So it's just their password. It's not going to be transferred via HTTP to your database to be saved somewhere else where now someone can see that password. You see? So I think it's a fix for now to be able to save the information between pages so that you can access it later. And the session clears every time the person logs out. The session gets cleared, and it's only inside of that person's browser, and they can clear their own session by clearing their cookies as well. Okay, so the information is saved on that user's browser. And just remember to include all of these inside of your terms and conditions, that you're actually saving stuff inside of users' browsers, you're using cookies and stuff like that. But I think that's all covered in cookie policies and things like that. So you're going to have to cover that inside of your terms of service and a cookie policy, that you are saving information inside of users' browsers, because I think according to the law, you need to inform people if you're saving stuff inside of their own browsers. Then after that, we create a new variable that we call randint, we use the randint function, which is a built-in Python function. It's going to create me a random integer between these two numbers, right, randomly. And then I just need to import randint at the top from random, report randint. It's just a function that you can use. You just give it like a range, and within that range it'll give you randomly a number, which is okay, because the only thing is to specify the number of digits you want. So over here you have 1, 2, okay, how many zeros you've got here? You've got 3 zeros, you need 3 nines, which means it will give you a number from this to that, which will be 6 digits. If you want it to be 4 digits, you need 4 zeros and 4 nines. If you want it to be 5 digits, 5 zeros and 5 nines. I mean, you can test this thing out and see what happens when you do it. I mean, this is not rocket science, and you can run this thing in the, in your command line and see what happens. And then just, the point is you want a random generated number. And then we save it in the session. Right? So actually somebody knew how to access the session themselves. Maybe they would be able to just get the thing without verifying the password, but let's assume 99% of the people are not going to do it. So you go and you save the integer in the session. This is where probably a model would be useful, because you would save this in the model and then later check it later. But now I've decided to use the request.session. So I'm going to save this register code as a register code, and then I'm going to send a verification code email. And in this, I'm going to just send to the user a verification code and so forth and so forth. And so this code will be sent to the user, and then they'll get the code based on, it will be sent to this email address that you've given them. And then after that, then it will redirect them to the URL called code. Then the URL called code is this one here. It will be a form as well. Now in that URL called code, let's get the view function for that, which is this verify email. You just need to check that the code they've entered is correct. Let me actually just copy all of these all at once so that I don't have to copy them many times, because it's just the same thing. So register, I've already gone through. So verify email, let's copy it. Just remember, what were we doing? We were changing the authorization to profiles. Just search for all the authorization and replace it with profiles, and replace all, just so that you can find the HTML in the right location. Okay. So after we've done that, now we've gone through the register. When the person now gets the email address, the email, and there will now be a verify code form. Okay. So this verify code form is that if you go into your forms.py, it's just a form that has a code with a verification code, which is just a number input with a placeholder. So it's just a number input form. Okay. So that is the code you'll display, the form you'll display. And then if the form is valid, all right, and I think we've specified that this is required in the forms.py. Sorry. Yeah, it's required true. It's very important to specify the required fields as true, which means the form can't be submitted if they didn't enter a number in there. And then we check the code for request.post code, which is going to be in the form. And then we create another variable called codex, which we say request.session register code. Now, this register code is the one we saved in the request.session over here. So if we now say request.session register code, it's going to go find that code that was once saved from that random integer. And remember, this is the same session, so it's the code you just emailed them, right? And then you go find it. And then all you need to do is to compare this code and this codex. And what I found is sometimes they don't match, because even though it's a number, it saves it as a string for some reason. So I just put in the int in front of the code and in front of the codex, which is the same variable, should be, just to convert them all to integers, and then to check if they match. All right. So we get the code from the session, and we get the code from the form which the user has inputted. The form from the form which the user has inputted, they would have inputted it because they would have received it from their email. I'm still going to go into the code for writing this email later. We'll get to it, but I just want to go through the view functions first. So the codes match. If they match, then we create the user profile. At this stage, we now have the, remember we created the signals. So the profile should be created for the user automatically once you create a user based on the signals we just created. Remember the signals we built over there? When you create a new user, we get their username from the request.session, their email from the request.session, and their password from their request.session, because we saved them over here, if you remember, the email and password. So we get those and we recreate the profile over here only when the codes match. So if the codes don't match, we never create the profile. So this is how we make sure that the email address has been verified. Then we immediately save that user and we log them in and we route them to the home page in this case. So let me just find this dashboard and replace with home. Okay, so let's replace this one. Replace. And then let me just check it inside of my URLs. There's no dashboard in here, right? So we send them to the home page, because now the home page, you only need to, the home page is now this one at the bottom, which is where the whole AI stuff is working. And now you need to be logged in to access that page. So now they will be logged in and then we send them to that page. So when they come here the first time and they are not logged in, they'll actually be sent to the login page to log in first. And if they're not logged in, they actually need to register. Okay. So now, what if they enter the wrong code? So this was a bit of some coding gymnastics we did here. What if they enter the wrong code? And what if somebody has like with these things are very easy. It's very easy to actually build like a bot that can just randomly try all the different codes. We call it a brute force attack. And they can try all the variations until they find the right code. So you also don't want people to enter it like 100 times. Because if it's the correct email, maybe you entered it wrongly the first time because it was a misspelling. The second time you entered it wrongly because maybe you put an extra space. 4 times is more than sufficient, because if you have the right code. But obviously, if you don't have the right code and you keep trying all the different codes, that's a brute force attack. Somebody can do that on your application. They really don't want to verify their email address. They log in, they put in the codes until they find the right one. So we have to limit the number of times the person can enter the code. So we create a new variable called request.session code tries. And we're going to put this to 4 and we're going to measure it on 4. So what happens now? So if this code didn't match, right, we go into this block of code. This block of code, it checks if there's a code tries key inside of the request.session. If it's there, it does this. If it's not there, it creates it. It says request.session code tries is equals to 0, which means it's the first time they've entered the wrong code. So the first time they enter the wrong code, request.session code tries is 0. So after the request.session code tries is 0, then we reroute them back to the code page and we tell them, hey, you've entered an invalid code, please try again. But we are keeping track now of the code tries. Before, we're not keeping track of it the first time, because this code tries variable we only created for the first time in here. So now we tell them, no, you've entered the wrong code. Then we create the variable and we leave it as 0. Now they enter the wrong thing again. The next time we come here, the code tries in request.session will be true, because the next time it would have been created, because it was created here, but it was 0. So we check if it's less than 4. So yes, the first time it will be less than 4. And then we append to it, we add 1 to it. And then we send them back to the page and say, wrong code. So they enter it for the second time again. Now it will be 1. We append it again. So by the time they've entered it 4 times, this will be true. Will be false, I mean. So this will be now, this code tries less than 4 will be false. So it means it will be greater than 4, it will be equal to 4. And if it's equals to 4, this will be false, it will go in here. And we'll say, you know what, too many incorrect attempts. Please register again. And then this time, we route them into the we code tries, we set it to 0, and we register. We create a new registration code, which means the old one is now invalid. But actually, I've just realized something about this code. We need to do this before we check if it's correct. Why do we need to do this? Because technically, somebody could just refresh the page without going through this. They could refresh the page, and if they refresh the page, it would allow them to enter the code. Oh yeah, but then immediately if it's wrong, then this updates. So yeah, it would, okay, so they could refresh the page without me sending them, and then they could enter the wrong code. But if they enter the wrong code immediately, this will run and then it will update. So even if they refresh the code again, it will still work. Yeah, no, so this is fine. And we're gonna test it. And you should test it and test exactly what I'm saying. And if it doesn't work, maybe we need to have this function before we check if the code is valid or not, so that this is created before. But I think it will work either way, even if somebody just refreshes the page by themselves. The moment they enter the wrong code, this runs and this code tries, and the moment they do it 4 times, it sends them back, it resets the thing, so they can't brute force it. So the moment they enter it wrong 4 times, it resets the register code. This is very, very important. If they entered this thing 4 times incorrectly, you reset the register code, which means now the register code is now different. They have to restart again, even if they try to to bypass the thing by just going back to this page and trying to re-enter it again. It's actually now a different code. So at least it prevents that. Somebody who tries to trick your system might do that. But a normal user will actually just be like, okay, fine, let me enter the correct email address. Clearly, I can't go around this without entering the correct email address. So this is the code for checking the verification, all right? So once we've done that, then it logs in the user and then they'll log into the home page. So they're good to go, right? Then we have the login code. The user login form is this one over here. So if inside of our forms, you can see the user login form is just a username and a password. Username and a password, very simple. So we just display the user login form. If they submit the form, we replace and lower, which means we whatever email address they enter, we lowercase it. And then we if they haven't entered anything, we say, okay, please enter your email, please enter your password if they haven't entered anything. But obviously the form wouldn't allow you to submit without doing it, because inside of the forms we have added them as required fields. So actually this is required, this is required, so they have to have entered something. So actually this piece of thing is not required. So remove that and just put that like that. The user authenticate the username and the password. So there would be something here. It wouldn't be blank or none. Okay. And if the user is not none, it means there is a user. All right. Then we do something. And if the user is not, if it's invalid, so we log in the user. If there's a user, if you can authenticate them with the username and password, we immediately log them in and then we reroute them home. But if you can't get the user, so the user is none, it's invalid credentials, and we send them back to the login page, it means they were not authenticated. There is a piece of line here that I want to just because what I like to do with my profiles is to set in a last I call it a last login. The last time the person logged in, so that I can keep track of people logging into the system. So, and then, because sometimes you might want to, the reason why you might want to do something like this is, obviously you are paying for the server resources, and maybe your application runs for a couple of years, and maybe you've had it for like now, maybe 2-3 years. Somebody once created an account, they logged in once like 3 years ago, but they've never logged in for the last 3 years. So what you might want to do, you might want to run a function that goes through all the users, and you say, if the last login is like a year ago, let's just remove your profile so that we can declutter our application. And so it's very important. You might want to know when people log in and if people are active on the system, so that you can maybe even archive some of the data. So maybe you don't remove their profile, but you archive it and put it in a different container that's a bit further on, that is not going to clutter your current system. You understand? So it's very, very important. I normally like to do it. So I need to check in the last login. Now, the code here is for the old code, which I'm copying this from. So I need to just double check from my current profile how I created my model. So my model, I remember I have a profile model, and the profile model does not have a date last login. So I'm going to add that function. That variable called last login. Okay. And I'm going to put it inside of the model here. And it's going to be a date time field. Okay. It's going to be a date time field, which can be none. All right. And so every time they log in, right, then I will update the last login. So this view function will check. It's very, very important because this is a different model to the user. So, and it's a one-on-one relation, as you can see over here, which means you can check that the user has this profiles class. Because sometimes maybe I created a user in the admin side and I didn't create a profile, or maybe the signals didn't run or whatever, and the user didn't have a profile. A profile wasn't created. Technically, the way I've built it, based on the signals, every time a user is created, a profile will be created for that user. But it could happen that it didn't happen. That, I've done this before, and sometimes, things happen. So we check, first of all, that this user has a profiles. So here, everywhere there's related employee, I need to just replace this with profiles. All right. So I check in that the user has an attribute of profiles, which will be true if the user has a profile because of the one-to-one relationship. And if it's true, then I'm going to say the profiles is now the user.profiles. Okay. So let me do that as well. The profiles is a user.profiles because it's a one-to-one relationships. Then I get that profiles and I update the last login using the local time of the current time. Right now is the last time the person logged in. I just need to make sure that I have imported time zone over here. And what I like about this function is that if your application is global, wherever the person is, it will use their local time. And then we save it. So that means that now every time they log in, we update the last login for them. And this is inside of an if, so it checks that the person has a profile because the last login is actually created inside of the profiles class. So this will work. Okay. And maybe this last login, we might want to include it inside of our admin. Oh, there you go. Last login. So how did I miss it in here? How was it in there, this last login in the admin, if it wasn't, because here's the last login. I have it in here. How was it in the filter and in the list display if it wasn't inside of my model? So this was a mistake from the ChatGPT. So just check these things as well manually. Don't just copy and paste ChatGPT code without understanding what it's trying to do. Because I thought I had this last login already. But it's no harm done. We caught it. We would have received an error in the admin page and then we would have fixed it anyway. So we're good. The last login is there and it gets updated, and then we are happy with that. The forget password and reset password, I'm not going to cover that with you now here today. Everything that because already there's a lot here that we're doing. Okay. So everything we have done here, I'm going to give you the code for you to update it yourself. And everything that I've taught you, this is your homework. All right. Go and have a look at the reset password code and make it work. Because there's a couple of things you're going to have to check the form. the model which we create to get the link, and how we send the link using the email, and how then the link gets checked on the other side. It's important that you're going to know how to do this. So you'll see the last part of our application is this send verification email, which I haven't built, right? So, and this is a function which I'm going to write inside of my functions.py, and I'm actually going to get ChatGPT to help me write it. All right. Okay. Write a file, create a file called functions.py. In this file, create a function called, I want the name of the function to be very specific, because I've already written the function in here, called this, that will send an email to a user. The function will take in the email address of the user and a code. Okay, it will then email that user the code that they can later use to verify their email address. So it's just an email function that sends a verification code to the user. So you can get Django to help you write this, right? So let's see. Let's copy this code and paste it inside of the functions. All right, so let's see. The subject, email verification code. The message, your verification code. The sender, replace with your email. The recipient list is the list of the email. And then you send it. So I'm going to change this a little bit. The message, I'm going to make it a bit more interesting. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use, I'm going to still use an F string, 1, 2, 3. But I'm going to write it like a proper email. Good day. You need to verify your email address. Use this code to verify. Okay, you need to verify your email address. Use this code to verify. Very simple. Kind regards. Scholar chat. So now this will write, this is like a, an F string, but you can write it like a normal email. So that it looks like a proper email, not just like one straight line. Okay, the sender email address, replace with your email address. We can actually get our email address off our settings.py. And the email address we're going to send from is this one. Okay. So functions. Let's replace that. There you go. And send mail. So you can use ChatGPT to help you write the other, email for the, because there's inside of the functions which I said you must go through yourself now. So you'll see over here, we take in the email address and we enter the code. So all we need to enter here is the code and the email address. So over here, the only thing that might be tricky with forget password flow is number one, the reset password email, which you saw how I did this, how I was able to get ChatGPT to help me write that code. You can do the same thing. It takes the email and the link, right? Now you need to create a new link. I think the only tricky part is the link, is how to create that link. This link, I've already given you a hint. If you go into the URLs, you will see there's a reset password link, and it takes in this unique ID. Okay? And then this unique ID, if you look inside of the views, right? We basically, it's gonna be like a, it's a variable. It's a variable inside of the URL that it will come with. So you need to put this link inside of the URL. You need to build the URL to look like this. So you're gonna have to take in obviously the application, where the application is sitting, and the entire path, and put in the unique code at the end to build this URL. And this unique code needs to be the unique code of the reset link, which is what we are doing over here when we are creating the reset link there. We create the reset link for this user, and after that we can get the unique ID of that reset link, and then we can use that unique ID to build the link. And that link must be the link that sends the person to this view function, and then that unique ID must be at the end of the link, and then that unique ID is just used to fetch the reset link from the database. So this just to make sure that the person, this is just one method of doing it, is that I've created an object where I create a link which only I know, and then I save that link in my database. And then because you can't use the session, because we don't know when the person clicks on the thing, if the session is still valid. You could have used the session, but we can't use the session. This is the other method of using the database. Then when the person now logs in, we can get that link from the URL path. Okay, and then we can go and get that object, reset link object. And then if we have the reset link object, then we know the user, because we know the user from the reset link object, because when we created the reset link the first time, it was connected to a user, which is this user that was logged in. So we can find that user information, and then we just log in the user. So what's happening here is we don't even have them reset their password, because another thing you could do is that you could then display a reset password page for them to reset their own password. But I think over here we just log them in and redirect them home. So if they find that reset link and they click it, it's like a magic login link. It will just send them to this page, and then it will just log them in. That is if they're actually able to access the link. That is if they forget their password. You see? That's how this works. But like, I'm not gonna cover testing this in here. And I haven't even built this reset email, because I want you to go do it. And I'm not gonna put it in the code that I'm gonna put in Django that I'm gonna share with you on where I'm sharing the code, because I want you to go build this section. I will show this to you next week when we continue, and hopefully by then you've done it yourself, and then you are able to do that. So I think we are done with our authentication flow. Hey, let me see. We did quite a lot of coding. This is a very long tutorial. But I think we're done, huh? There's only one way to check. So let me just do my quick checks, okay? Let me check my URLs, okay? My URLs are there, cool. So the only thing is I'm gonna have a problem. I need to just create this function just so I don't get an error, okay? Let's just, yeah, it shouldn't give me an error actually, because it shouldn't run this request.post anyway. Okay, so I'm not gonna create it, yeah. Because I'm not importing it at the top, I'm just importing everything. Okay, so it's not going to give me an error. But my URLs are fine. I've gone through my URLs. My forms are fine. My HTMLs are fine. So let's test it. Obviously, we might experience problems, and obviously we will solve them as we go along. Okay, so let's push these changes. Authentication flow. Okay. All right, so let's see. If I come over here and I say, Or I need to run migrations first because I need to, because I've created new models and things. So I need to say python manage.py make migration, right? And it created the new profiles and reset link models, which were not there before. And then after that, I need to run migrate. Okay, cool. So my migration ran without issues. So then I need to then manage.py run server. Now, this is the page that we were on before. This is, where is my stuff? This is the page. No, this is not the page. This is the page. This is the home page. But remember, we've now put in the login required decorator on the home page, which means if I go to the home page now, I should not be able to access it because I'm actually not logged in. So that's the first test we should be able to check. So now if I go to the home page, crispy form tags, yes, okay. It actually did work. It pushed me to the thing, but I didn't install crispy form tags. So just give me a moment. I need to find the correct version of the crispy form tags. I'm gonna check my old files. So just give me a moment. All right. So I need to install crispy forms, and I need to inform a very specific crispy forms. So I'm going to install Django Crispy Forms 1.12.0, because the current one has errors. I was testing it this week. Funny enough, I was just building this authentication this week for another project. So I came across this problem. So I know I'm going to come across it again. So let me just, I've installed it. So if you're watching this, install 1.12.0 will work. Okay. Then after you've done that, let's go back to the home page. Let's try and do this. Oh no. All right, it's fine. Because I was trying to see if I could go to the login page the way it was before. I mean the page before I put in the decorator, but it's fine. So this should now take me to the login page. Crispy form tags. Did I not install this? Oh yes, sorry. I need to also let me just ask ChatGPT how to do it again. I need to also include it in the installed apps. Include crispy forms in installed apps. All right, so you need to actually install it, and then in the settings.py file, yes, there you go. So this pip install Django Crispy Forms is the one I was telling you will have an error. You need to install a very specific the version that I showed you. But then once you've done that, you actually need to include it in the settings.py, which is something I forgot. Okay, so in the settings.py, you just include it like that, crispy forms in there. Okay, so let's push that. Crispy forms, and push my changes. If I now go back and I'm gonna rerun it again, and now it should work. So let's just remove that login next, whatever. There you go. So you'll see this looks slightly different from that. The thing is the high level, you see the class. Let me just show you. This class over here, this form floating, which has the input and the label. We didn't include the class in the forms, which is one of the things that's tricky with crispy forms. There's a way to do it. It's a longer process, which I'm not going to bother about it now because we're running out of time completely. What you can do is that you can include the form helpers, and the form helpers actually allow you to include like even the layout of the form and designing the layout, and I've got it in my documentation. So if you go to Scholar Online documentation and you look at Django and you look at Django Forms, right? Inside of Django Forms, I actually show you how to do it. With the form helpers, do I have it? There you go. So basically you can create a form, and then you, but you also download the form helpers from CRISPR Forms like that. And then when you initiate the form, you actually build a layout. And then from the layout, you can build the rows and the columns, and you can actually enter the CSS class of the rows. So if you did a row like this and you enter the CSS class of the row, you could enter it as whatever the CSS class you've got, like as that other CSS class which we have over here, which is the form floating. All right. So you could do that, and then you enter the column. So you can specify the CSS design of the forms yourself. Then the form will actually look exactly the way it's supposed to look based on this, right? But I'm not too worried. Like signing in, email address and password, people know the hell what we're talking about here. Okay, so I'm not gonna worry about those details, but in case you wanted to do it, that's how you would do it. So now you got the sign in. I just want to check the register. Register. Let me just spell it properly. Right, so the register profile page also displays fine. It's using the layout. Remember what we did with the layout, where we said you are able to use this auth layout, and that works fine. And then it's, so everything worked well. You can see even the title of the page, register page. And let me look at the code. The code HTML. Code. So did we not call this code? Let me see on the URLs. We called it verify email, even though the name of the page is called code. You need to go into verify email. I just want to see the verify email page. There you go. So this is the verification email page. It will look like that. And then the reset password page. So why did we call that? Forget. Did we call that forget? Okay, we called it forget. There you go. So this is the forgot password. So obviously you don't want, people are not going to be like navigating like this through your pages. So you want to like create the links nicely for them, right? So on the login page, you usually want to have the link for the register page, for example, So on the login page, if I go back to the login page, if I end up here on the login page, right, I usually want to have the link for the register page. So over here under the button, maybe you want to put a thing that says, oh, already have an account, whatever, like a link there. So after the button, you've got this one there. All right, so let's just put in another paragraph here. And then let's say so this is the login page. Don't have an account. You don't have an account, create one. So and you put in a URL for register, and then say create one. Create an account. Okay, so don't have an account, hey, create an account. So this is on the login page. Forgot password, BR. All right, forgot password. Okay. URL for, let me just copy the URL properly. URL for forget. So if they forgot their password, actually just let me say or forgot password like this, or you put the forgot password in there. So you say create an account, or if you forgot your password, go to the forgot password page so that they can navigate between the pages, right? Then inside of the login page, this is the login. So we need the register page. So instead of the register page, we might want to say already have an account, and then we can say, you know, log in, and then we put in the URL for login, and then we say log in or sign in. Sign in. So if you already have an account, you can sign in. Otherwise, you can forget or whatever. So these are just useful for like navigating between the pages, because you saw like how hard it is for me to try and get between the different pages. So, all right. Check it. Right, so then let's just refresh this and then go back to the login page. Yeah, that's okay. So don't have an account. Okay, so maybe I don't need a break in between this login. I can just remove this break. Yeah, or forgot password. Do I need a big OR? No, it's fine. It can be big O. It's okay. Yeah. So you don't have an account, you can create an account, and then it takes you to the register page. Already have an account, sign in. But you see here, I need a bit of a double break. So maybe let me just put in a break over here. Login, register. And then on the forgot, already have an account, a URL for login. All right, so let's try this again. Okay, navigate between auth pages. Cool, and then let's restart this. So now on this login page, don't have an account. Didn't I put in a break in here? Sometimes it's better to just put in a margin top, hey? MT3. Let's try that. Let's remove the break. And let's put in an MT3. Okay. Not MT5. Let's put in an MT3. And let's put in on all the other. So it's login, it's register. Okay. It's forgot password. Just put in a margin top 3. And obviously the code page, we want to give people the option to move back to the registration page. You know, maybe they did put in a wrong email address, right? So you want to say P use a different, actually PA URL for register, and we want to say use a different email. And at the top over here, paragraph, we want to have an MT3 and MB3, okay? Margin top 3, margin bottom 3. We want to say an email has been sent to use, let me see what I have it in here under code. Enter the code that was sent to this to verify your account. Okay. So I just want to get the wording exactly. Okay. Enter the code that was sent to your email and then the request of session with email, because by now we've saved the email in the request of session to verify your account. That's it. And then otherwise, you can use a different email. You can navigate back to the other registration page in case you realize that the email here is not the correct one. Okay. This should be it now. Right. Then I just want to check something here. Login. Okay, create an account, registration page, sign in, forgot password, back to login. Cool. Now, I want to test the thing, and that's the last thing I'll do today. But before I test it, I want to just check that my email flow works well, because that is the thing that can go wrong. So this, I want to just check this function, and I want to just check it inside of the views here, how I'm running it. It's just inside of a try. Okay. So ideally what you want to do with email functions, you actually want to put them inside of a loop. You want them to run in the background. You don't want them to run inside of the normal application flow, because it takes time usually to send an email, and you don't want this page to be loading for a long time because it's taking time to send the email. So you want to put it inside of a background, thread. But I won't complicate your life with that today. Today I will just let's just test that email sending functionality. Okay. So we're going to say Python. This is a good way, and I teach my developers to do this all the time. Sometimes, especially when you have written a whole lot of code like this, it's better to test the different parts of the code step by step on their own before you try and test everything together. Because one of the things that can definitely go wrong with this code is the email, sending the email, and there's an error there, right? So let's fix the email function first. So manage.py shell. So I want to just open the shell because I want to do this in the Django shell. And then I want to just call in these functions, so from profiles.functions. Functions, I want to just import that function, which it will import this function, which is here. And I just want to test this function. All I need is an email address and a code to test this function if it's working properly, so that at least I know that the function works, right? So I'm going to send this to myself, an email to myself, Mathidis. Then I'm going to put in a code. I'm going to put in any code. It's not a real code. Just want to check that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that the function works. So then I'm going to then run the function with the email address and a code and see what happens. Okay, it went. No errors. Let us go and check my mailbox. I'm checking my mailbox right now. It's a Gmail account, so I'm actually checking my Gmail. Let me open my Gmail here. I don't have secrets in there. So let's open it and see. There you go. Email verification code. You need to verify your email address. Use this code 123456 to verify regards. So the email works. So the email sending functionality works, and you can see it comes from this Hello Skokotech, which I need to change the password for this before I put up this code online. So this works. So we can definitely test this. And I will use the exact email address, Mathidis, to create an account. And then we're going to test this. Right? So if I landed on the home page, of this application, the URL, the home URL, the chat place, it's going to come here. It's going to ask me to sign in first. Same that happens when you go to the ChatGPT. It asks you to sign in. So, because it knows I'm not signed in. Okay, cool. Sign in with an email or password. No, I don't have an account. I want to create an account. Oh, okay. Register a profile. Okay, cool. Let me register a profile. matiris@gmail.com. Let's register a profile there. Let's put in a password. Put in the password again. And let's register. Cool. It says it sends me to the verification code. Enter the code that was sent to your email address, blah blah blah, to verify your account, and you're gonna check your code. If by now you realize, oh, I gave them the wrong email address, it's the wrong email address, you can use a different email and go back to the registration page and enter a different email address. It will still work. It's not gonna affect whatever has been done so far, because a profile hasn't actually been created yet. Remember, we only create the profile after we have verified your email. So let me go back to my, what shall I call it? Now I've got 2 emails. This is the new one. This is the one with the code 716760. Okay. So let's try something. This is the right code, but let's enter the wrong code, right? See what happens. Invalid code, please try again. So it doesn't allow, this is the code. And if we did it like multiple times, it's counting, right? And you can test this yourself. And as a developer, you must test this yourself. So let's enter the right code. Cool. And it took me to the home page. This is the home page. This is the home page, remember, that we had before, but you couldn't access if you're not logged in. Now I'm logged in, and it knows I'm logged in because now I've logged in and I have done this. So what you can do here, you can have a profile page over there and put in a page for allowing people to change their passwords, maybe to check their profile, maybe to check the kind of number of credits they've got, and all of those other nice things which we can do later. But today's tutorial is definitely finished. I have managed to show you how to build an authentication flow. So it was a long tutorial, but I think this is very, very important because I've showed you the right way of doing it. And go through the code. I'll make it available on GitHub so you can peruse it. But of course, your homework and the code that I haven't showed you is going to be the code around how to do the reset password link and all of that, which I've shown you the code in the video. It's just up to you to go and rewrite it properly and get it to work. So we will start with that when we continue in the next tutorial. And thank you guys for watching, and see you again next week.